You were told to fight your enemies. You were taught to resist, to defend, to strike back. But what if the greatest weapon in the spirit is not resistance, but blessing? What if the moment you bless them, something in the unseen world begins to collapse? What if curses cannot survive the atmosphere of mercy? An ex-witch is about to reveal the truth they never wanted you to discover. You were never told this in church. But in the dark world of witchcraft, there is a law they cannot escape. It is not written in their books. It is not spoken in their circles. But every witch knows the fear of it. It is the law of reversal. An ex-witch once confessed that the most dangerous target is not the one who fights back, not the one who curses in return, not the one who becomes bitter, angry, or revengeful. The most dangerous target is the one who blesses, because the spirit realm operates on authority, and authority is tied to the condition of the heart. When a curse is sent, it looks for an open door. It searches for anger. It searches for bitterness. It searches for revenge. It searches for emotional agreement. And when it finds that agreement, it attaches. But when you bless your enemies, something shocking happens in the unseen realm. The curse has no legal ground to land. It begins to circle. It begins to search. It looks for a place to rest. But your heart is sealed with mercy. And without legal access, it must return to the sender. The ex-witch revealed that many curses never reached their targets. Not because the rituals failed. Not because the spells were weak. But because the target had a heart of forgiveness. They had no idea they were protected. They simply chose mercy over revenge. And that single decision activated a spiritual reversal. Imagine a dart thrown at a wall of glass. Instead of piercing through, it bounces back with double force. That is what happens in the spirit when you bless your enemies. The ex-witch said there were times when entire rituals collapsed. Candles would crack, altars would fall, dream attacks would backfire, and the witches would panic because they knew what it meant. The target was blessing them, not fighting, not cursing, not retaliating, blessing. And in the world of darkness, that is the most terrifying defense a person can have, because blessing creates light, and curses cannot survive in light. When you bless someone who wronged you, you are not just speaking words. You are shifting the spiritual atmosphere around your life. You are closing doors. You are breaking agreements. You are canceling assignments. And every curse that was sent now has nowhere to land. But here is the deeper revelation. Most people unknowingly cooperate with the curses sent against them. They replay the offense. They rehearse the pain. They speak words of anger. They wish harm on their enemies. And without realizing it, they create the exact spiritual environment the curse needs to survive. The ex-witch said they never feared angry believers. They never feared people who spoke revenge, because those people were already wounded, already bitter, already open. The curses didn't need to force their way in. The doors were already unlocked. But the ones who blessed, those were the impossible targets. Those were the ones rituals failed against. Those were the ones dream attacks could not penetrate. Those were the ones who kept rising, no matter how many curses were sent. And the witches would say, something is protecting them. But it wasn't something. It was the power of mercy. You must understand this truth. Blessing your enemies is not weakness. It is not surrender. It is not defeat. It is a spiritual weapon. And it is one of the few weapons that forces curses to reverse direction. Because when you bless, you align yourself with a higher authority. And no curse can outrank that authority. That is why some people survive attacks that should have destroyed them. That is why some families break free from generational darkness. That is why some destinies cannot be stopped, not because they fought harder, but because they blessed deeper. So the next time someone betrays you, the next time someone attacks your name, the next time someone plots against your life, you must remember this law. Your blessing is not for them. It is for the protection of your own destiny. Because the moment you bless, the curse begins its journey back. In the world of witchcraft, nothing happens randomly. Every curse, every spell, every attack is built on agreement. An ex-witch once revealed a chilling truth. They said curses are not just thrown into the air hoping to hit someone. They are attached to spiritual contracts. These contracts are not always spoken. They are not always written. But they exist, and most people sign them without even knowing. Every time you hold unforgiveness, you sign a contract. Every time you speak hatred, you sign a contract. Every time you wish harm on someone, you give darkness permission to operate in your life. The spirit realm runs on permission. Nothing can stay where it is not welcomed. So when someone sends a curse toward you, the spirit attached to that curse begins searching for legal ground. It looks for bitterness. It looks for resentment. It looks for emotional wounds that have not healed. And the moment it finds one, it locks in. That is the contract. The ex-witch confessed that many times. They did not even need strong rituals. All they needed was a wounded heart on the other side, because pain creates openings, and openings become access points. But blessing your enemies does something the dark world cannot tolerate. It tears up the contract. The moment you say, Lord, bless them, something powerful happens in the unseen realm. The spiritual agreement that the curse was feeding on collapses. Because blessing is the opposite of agreement with darkness. It is a declaration that you refuse to participate in hate. You refuse to cooperate with revenge. You refuse to host bitterness in your heart. And without that agreement, the curse loses its legal right to remain. The ex-witch described moments when curses would suddenly lose power. Objects used in rituals would stop responding. Dream attacks would become distorted and ineffective. Spiritual messengers would return without completing their assignment. And the witches would know instantly the contract had been broken. But here is what most people never realize. Darkness does not just attack you from the outside. It tries to partner with your emotions. When someone hurts you, the real battle is not just what they did. The real battle is what grows inside your heart afterward. Bitterness is not just a feeling. It is an open door. Hatred is not just emotion. It is a legal invitation. Revenge is not just a thought. It is a spiritual signature on a contract you never meant to sign. That is why blessing your enemies is so powerful. It closes every door. It tears up every hidden agreement. It cancels every emotional signature. It removes every legal ground the curse was depending on. And when the legal ground disappears, the curse has no authority to stay. The ex-witch said there were times when entire operations failed because the target started praying for their enemies, not against them, not in anger, not with hidden bitterness, but with genuine blessing. And that kind of prayer creates a spiritual firewall, a barrier that curses cannot cross. Because curses need agreement. And blessing removes agreement. You must understand this deeply. Your heart is not just emotional. It is legal territory in the spirit realm. Whatever you allow to live in your heart, give something permission to live in your life. So when you hold on to unforgiveness, you are not just hurting emotionally. You are giving darkness a place to stay. But when you bless your enemies, even through pain, you are evicting every dark assignment attached to that offense. You are canceling contracts you never knew existed. And the moment those contracts are destroyed, the curses begin to lose their grip. They weaken. They scatter. They return to their source. This is why some people suddenly experience freedom after choosing to forgive. Doors open, peace returns, oppression lifts, nightmares stop, strange cycles break. It is not coincidence. It is the result of broken contracts. Blessing your enemies is not just an act of obedience. It is an act of spiritual warfare. It is the weapon that destroys the legal foundation of every curse. And when the foundation is gone, the entire structure of the attack collapses. There is a type of person the dark world fears more than any other. Not the loud ones. Not the ones who shout at demons. Not the ones who speak big spiritual words. The ones they fear are the ones who pray for the people who hurt them. An ex-witch once admitted this with trembling honesty. They said there were targets they avoided completely. Not because those people were powerful in appearance, not because they carried titles or positions, but because they carried mercy. In the world of witchcraft, attacks are not only about power, they are about reaction. Every curse is sent with an expectation of fear, an expectation of anger, an expectation of retaliation. Because when a person reacts in hatred, they unknowingly strengthen the attack. The ex-witch revealed that many rituals were designed to provoke emotional reactions. Dream attacks were meant to cause fear. Conflicts were meant to spark anger. Betrayals were meant to plant bitterness. Why? Because emotions are fuel in the spirit realm. Fear fuels oppression. Hatred fuels curses. Bitterness fuels bondage. But mercy shuts everything down. When you pray for someone who hurt you, something unusual happens. You step out of the battlefield they prepared for you. You refuse to play the role they expected. You refuse to feed the atmosphere they created. And suddenly, their attack has no energy source. The ex-witch said this was one of the most frustrating situations in the occult world. They would target someone expecting fear, but instead, that person would pray. They would send confusion, but the person would respond with blessing. They would provoke anger, but the person would release forgiveness. And every time that happened, the attack would weaken. Because darkness cannot feed on mercy. Mercy is like light in a room full of shadows. It exposes everything. It dissolves hidden works. It strips curses of their power. The ex-witch described moments when attacks would suddenly reverse direction. Not slowly, not gradually, instantly, because the target chose to bless instead of curse. In the occult, this creates a dangerous spiritual reaction. When a curse cannot land, it does not simply disappear, it returns. And the one who sent it becomes the nearest available target. This is why witches fear people who pray for their enemies. Because such people are spiritually sealed. They have no open doors, no emotional agreements, no hatred to attach to. So every attack becomes a risk to the sender. The ex-witch confessed that they once warned others in their circle. They would say, "Do not waste your rituals on that one. Nothing sticks to them. It always comes back." And the reason was simple. That person was praying for their enemies. You may not feel powerful when you bless someone who hurt you. You may feel weak. You may feel exposed. You may feel like you are letting them win. But in the spirit realm, you are becoming untouchable. Because you are stepping into a level of authority darkness cannot manipulate. You are removing every hook the enemy planned to use against you. Think about it. If someone tries to provoke you, but you refuse to be provoked, where does their attack go? If someone sends hatred, but you respond with blessing, where does that hatred land? If someone releases a curse, but finds no agreement in your heart, where can it stay? It cannot stay in light. And when it cannot stay, it must return. This is why the ex-witch said the most dangerous believers were not the loudest ones. They were the quiet ones, the forgiving ones, the ones who kept blessing even when it hurt. Those were the ones rituals failed against. Those were the ones curses could not hold. Those were the ones the dark world quietly avoided, because mercy is not weakness. Mercy is spiritual fire disguised as gentleness. And when you pray for your enemies, you become a place where curses cannot survive. There is a moment in the spirit realm that most people never see. It is the moment when your pain turns into power. It is the moment when your blessing becomes authority. An ex-witch once revealed that there is a point where repeated mercy changes a person's spiritual position. At first, when someone blesses their enemies, it simply closes doors. It cancels contracts. It forces curses to return. But if that mercy becomes a lifestyle, something deeper begins to happen. Your spiritual authority increases because the spirit realm recognizes alignment. And when you consistently choose mercy over revenge, forgiveness over bitterness, blessing over hatred, you align yourself with a higher throne. And authority flows from alignment. The ex-witch said there were certain people who were once easy targets. They were wounded. They were angry. They were bitter from years of betrayal. And the curses worked, but then something changed. Those people began to forgive. They began to bless the very ones who hurt them. They began to pray for their enemies daily. And over time, the spiritual atmosphere around them shifted. What once worked stopped working. Rituals that once affected them failed. Dream attacks that once reached them became blocked. Negative words spoken against them lost their effect. The witches would repeat the rituals. They would increase the intensity. They would add more power to the spells. But nothing changed because the target was no longer operating at the same spiritual level. They had stepped into authority. The ex-witch described this as a terrifying realization in the occult world. When someone reaches this level, curses no longer just fail. They begin to break apart before even reaching the target. It is like arrows turning into dust in midair. Because authority creates a protective atmosphere, and blessing is what builds that atmosphere. Every time you bless instead of curse, you rise in authority. Every time you forgive instead of resent, you strengthen your spiritual position. Every time you pray for the one who hurt you, you step higher above the reach of darkness. This is not emotional. This is legal and spiritual. Authority is not given to the loudest person. It is given to the most aligned heart. And alignment with mercy is one of the highest forms of spiritual authority. The ex-witch said there were moments when they knew instantly that a target had reached this level. No matter what they tried, nothing worked. It was as if the person had become invisible to darkness, untouchable, unreachable, unmovable. And the only difference was this: they became people who blessed their enemies. You must understand the weight of this truth. Every act of mercy is not just kindness. It is construction. You are building something in the spirit realm. You are building authority. You are building protection. You are building a spiritual atmosphere where curses cannot breathe. And one day, you will reach a point where attacks that once affected you no longer touch you at all, because you have risen above them, not through revenge, not through anger, not through fighting back, but through blessing. This is the secret many in the dark world hope you never discover. Because the moment you begin to bless your enemies consistently, you stop being a target. You become a force. Now you know the truth they tried to hide from you. Your blessing is not weakness, it is spiritual authority. Every act of mercy is a weapon that darkness cannot survive. Every prayer for your enemy is a shield around your destiny. You are not powerless. When you forgive, you are dangerous to every curse. Stand in that authority. Walk in that mercy. Speak blessing without fear, and watch every attack against your life collapse before it reaches you.